In the middle of a barren desert, a warrior stands battered and broken. His name is Randolph, but he's just an avatar for someone else. A group of desert warriors charges in, ready to finish off the dying hero. Randolph's breath is shallow as blood drips from his face. This is the end of the line. The enemy's war cries echo across the sands as they close the distance. They swarm him from all sides, burying their blades into the exhausted warrior. The screen goes dark. Back in the real world, our boy sits in silence in front of his computer. A massive game over screen stares back at him. Another failed run in the world's most difficult game. His room is a disaster zone, cluttered with trash and lit only by the cold glow of the monitor. He lets out a long sigh and leans back, his eyes reflecting the exhaustion of 5 years of playing. The desk is covered in empty energy drink cans and instant ramen cups, the diet of a dedicated shootin'. 5 years of this lifestyle have left Hyun-jeong looking rough with unkempt hair and a face full of stubble. He stares at the login screen for Pangenia, a VR game that's been dead for years. The player base has completely vanished. He's literally the only one left on the server. Old forum posts are filled with players quitting in frustration because the game was just too punishing. The bosses were legendary for their cruelty, wiping out entire parties with a single roar. One mistake meant a blade through the chest and a permanent loss of all progress. Even the most elite knights were constantly slaughtered by the game's brutal AI. Pangenia became a graveyard of dreams, leaving behind a field of abandoned swords. Hyun-jeong crushes a cigarette into an ashtray that's already overflowing. He looks like he's finally reached his breaking point. 5 years for nothing. His last character is dead, slumped over on the screen with swords pinning him to the ground. A system message confirms the inevitable. His character is being deleted permanently. The avatar dissolves into a cloud of blue digital particles, vanishing into thin air. Hyun watches the empty world reflected in his glasses, feeling more hollow than the game itself. But there's a catch. Every time a character dies, their level and gear are converted into soul points. These points can be invested into the next life to unlock more powerful traits and talents. He thinks back on the hundreds of characters he's lost over the years, all to reach this point. He's sitting on a massive fortune of 1.6 million soul points, a record no one else will ever touch. On a whim, he decides to spend a small chunk on a completely random talent draw. He doesn't really care what happens next. He's already lost everything that mattered. His mind flashes back to the day his life in the real world came to a crashing halt. His girlfriend sat him down in a quiet cafe, telling him she couldn't be with someone with no future. Her eyes were cold, filled with a resolve that told him there was no room for negotiation. She looked away, unable to deal with his reaction as she prepared to end their 5-year relationship. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and walked out of the cafe without a second glance. Hyun bowed his head, the weight of the breakup crushing him more than any boss ever could. He watched her walk away until she disappeared into the crowd, leaving him alone at the table. That was the day he retreated into this dark room, choosing the virtual desert over the real world. He stares at the mouse, a reckless glint appearing in his eyes for the first time in years. He clicks the button, committing those points to his final roll of the dice. Suddenly, the monitor erupts in a blinding flash of blue data far brighter than anything he's seen before. A hidden piece has been activated, and for our boy, the game is about to become very real. A system notification pops up. He's been invited to the world of Pangenia. Suddenly, his entire room is consumed by a vortex of digital energy. Hyun grinds his teeth as the light becomes blinding. A monstrous roar echoes through his mind. He's thrown back by the force of the transition, his world literally dissolving. He passes out as the light swallows him whole. The system leaves him with one final cryptic message. May you find happiness. He's jolted awake by a sharp, stinging pain on his back. He finds himself in a scorching desert, chained up like a slave. A cruel slave driver is lashing out at everyone in line. Another strike lands, and the pain is way too realistic for a dream. He collapses into the sand, gasping for air. In the distance, he spots a Hydreigon, a Hyle monster from the game. The sun is brutal, and the desert stretches out endlessly. Reality starts to sink in as he stares at the horizon. He stands among the other slaves and instinctively tries to open his status window. It actually works, and the stats are absolutely insane. All 12s across the board. He's led away with the rest of the chain gang. His mind racing. He looks completely stunned. This shouldn't be possible. He keeps scrolling through the menu, checking his rewards. It turns out his soul points unlock 13 different hidden traits. Suddenly, a wave of panic ripples through the other slaves. Hyun hears a low rumble coming from the dunes. A massive cloud of dust signals that they're not alone out here. It's the Desert Queen's army, and they're riding in on massive beasts. Leading the charge is Isabella, the snake princess herself. She looks down at the camp with cold, murderous intent. A quest window flickers to life in front of him. He barely has time to read it as the first arrows start to fly. The mission is simple but terrifying. Survive or die for real. His pupils dilate as he realizes the stakes just changed. Arrows rain down from the sky, skewering guards and slaves alike. The camp descends into total chaos within seconds. A new trait activates the iron-blooded lord's heart. All around him, people are getting cut down in a spray of blood. He spots a fallen guard's sword lying just out of reach. He lunges for it, his survival instincts taking over. As his hand grips the hilt, a familiar blue light surges through him. He moves like a blur, cutting through an attacker before they can even blink. His eyes glow with a lethal intensity as he readies his next strike. The final piece of the puzzle clicks. The Weapon Master trait is now online. One of the desert guards swings a massive axe, putting his whole weight behind the blow. But our boy isn't just some level 1 scrub. He definitely parries the strike and maneuvers around him. He counters with a precise thrust, taking the guard down before he can even recover. Another hooded guard lunges in, but Hyong and LT, Unk and GT's reactions are on point. He dodges effortlessly, his eyes tracking every movement as the fight intensifies. Thanks to his Reader of Stars trait, he can see the exact path of every incoming weapon. He deflects another blade that sparks flying as he holds his own against the crowd. With each kill, a surge of energy flows into him, boosting his masteries in real time. He brings a sword down in a punishing vertical slash, cutting through his next opponent. The guards are getting torn apart, coughing up blood as Hung Yang's attacks land with lethal force. He moves like a seasoned warrior, even though he's technically just starting out, but the sheer volume of enemies is starting to weigh on him as he gasps for air. More of them just keep pouring in, surrounding him in the middle of the scorched wasteland. Hyong stands firm, his body glowing with the aura of his rapidly rising skills. A system notification pops up. His spear mastery has already reached level 5. He takes a moment to steady himself, looking at the bodies piling up around him. He tightens his grip on the hilt of his sword, ready for whatever's next. Looking out at the horizon, he realizes he's facing a literal army of these guys. Meanwhile, back at the palace, a scene of a different kind of tension is unfolding. The Desert Queen sits regally on her throne, looking down at those kneeling before her. Her eyes glow with a menacing red light as she delivers her orders. Isabella stays silent, her expression unreadable as she listens to the Queen's commands. The Queen wants any survivors from the failed expedition erased from existence. Isabella bows her head in submission, knowing she has no choice but to follow through. She doesn't look particularly thrilled about the job, but she's bound by a curse she can't break. She confirms her mission, her voice steady despite the weight of her task. Failing this mission isn't an option if she wants to stay in the Queen's good graces. She sets out immediately, her gaze cold and focused as she heads into the desert. It doesn't take long for her to reach the site of the massive battle. Standing atop a giant skeletal remain, she surveys the carnage from above. Something catches her eye. Someone is actually still standing amidst the piles of bodies. The desert guards she sent were supposed to be more than enough to handle any survivors. Yet there's Han Yong still holding his bloody sword in the middle of the mess. Han Yong is at his limit, his shadow long against the sand as he tries to catch his breath. He looks up and sees a silhouette watching him from the high ground. It's Isabella staring down at him like he's just another loose end to be tied up. He recognizes her instantly as a character he personally created during his years playing the game. A status window confirms his fears. She's a level 8 powerhouse, and she's currently cursed by the Queen. Sweat beads on his face as he realizes the massive gap between them. He remembers her background as one of the most dangerous elites in the game's lore. The intense glow in her eyes tells him she's not here for a friendly chat. Knowing he can't win a fair fight, Hyeon Jeong readies his weapons, preparing to gamble everything on a bluff. Isabella's status window pops up, revealing her level and the curse keeping her trapped in the desert. She steps closer, her heels clicking against the sand as she approaches the low-level player. Up close, her gaze is sharp and deadly, scanning Han Yong like he's already dead. A massive, menacing snake aura rises behind her, showing the true power of the Snake Princess. Hyun Yong flashes back to the 5 years he spent in his room, crafting every detail of this game world. Despite her terrifying speed, he stands perfectly still as she lunges for the kill. Isabella strikes with blinding precision, her dagger slicing through the air toward his throat. But instead of flinching, Hyeon Jeong just lets out a small, confident smirk. The cold steel of her blade stops just inches from his neck as he holds his ground. She keeps the glowing weapon steady, ready to finish him if he breathes the wrong way. They lock eyes, the Heil assassin and the guy who knows all her secrets. He starts talking, laying out the bluff that he's the saint sent to lift her curse. Her eyes widen in genuine shock as he reveals knowledge that only her creator should know. He doesn't flinch, maintaining his focus even with a dagger still pointed at his jugular. Isabella's reaction is intense, her face lit by a mysterious glow as he continues his bluff. Isabella's composure crumbles as she realizes this guy might actually be her only ticket to freedom. She slowly lowers her weapon, looking at him with a mix of suspicion and newfound hope. Her full name, Isabella Vonders, flickers on the system interface as she finally acknowledges him. To her, freedom has always been like a bird soaring over the distant mountains, completely out of reach. Instead, she's been stuck in a gilded cage, serving a queen who views her as a disposable tool. Hyan watches her closely, knowing his survival depends on her buying every word of his story. He keeps a stoic face, fully committing to the role of a divine messenger. The system chimes in to confirm that his new identity is officially set. Isabella decides to take him with her, walking ahead while he follows close behind. She's still processing the revelation, her expression showing she's still not entirely convinced. She leads him past the remaining desert guards who aren't brave enough to question the Snake Princess. Hyeonjeong struggles to keep his balance, his body completely spent from the fight and the mental strain. Once they reach her domain, he finally gets to wash off the desert grime in a luxurious bath. A list of legendary rewards pops up, acknowledging his beyond perfect score of 220 points. He checks out his new loot, including Michaela's sword and the soul of a powerful high dragon. The most mysterious reward is a fragment of the Golden Rule, which mentions syncing reality with the game world. Suddenly, the doors swing open, and several women enter the bath area. There, Isabella's maids, arriving with fresh towels and oils to attend to the saint. Hunyong is caught off guard, his calm facade nearly slipping at the sudden arrival. They immediately get to work, scrubbing his back and shoulders with practiced ease. He has to close his eyes and take a deep breath, reminding himself to stay calm and play the part. Being a saint means he's supposed to be above worldly temptations, but the maids are making it difficult. He stares straight ahead, trying to ignore the awkwardness. As they continue their diligent work, he notices a chilling update on the system window. The collapse between reality and the game is at 7%. The notification warns that once it hits 10%, the first fissure will appear in the real world. He also checks the Global Hall of Fame and sees his name, Randolph, sitting at the very top of the rankings. He sits in the steaming water, trying to ignore Isabella watching him while he plans his next move. Hyan is taken aback by the system, warning about the risks of logging out while in such a high-profile location. He looks at the formidable guards nearby, knowing that leaving his level 1 character behind is a massive gamble. A notification reminds him that while the survival ranking has unlocked logout, his character will remain vulnerable in the game world. Far away, a powerful player with cold, piercing blue eyes watches the leaderboard shift as a new name takes the top spot. Back in a bath, Hyong suddenly pushes away the surprised maids, his mind made up about leaving. His expression is stern as he focuses on the interface, ignoring the luxury of his surroundings. He stands up in the water, his consciousness already beginning to pull away from the digital realm. From a bird's eye view, he looks like a man on a mission, completely ignoring the stunned attendants. Without another second of hesitation, he reaches out and taps the final confirmation to log out. He closes his eyes as the world of Pangenia dissolves into a blur of light and data around him. The screen fades to white, signaling that his connection to the game world has been successfully severed. But his return to reality is anything but peaceful. He is greeted by the sounds of sirens in a city engulfed in flames. A massive insect-like monster screeches as it tears through the burning streets, bringing the horrors of the game into the real world. Still in his tracksuit and glasses, Hyun rushes to his window, his face pale with shock at the carnage below. A gargantuan creature looms over the apartment buildings, its red eyes glowing menacingly amidst the smoke and fire. He stares in disbelief, realizing that the collapse he was warned about has officially reached his doorstep. He looks down at his hand, stunned to find a small golden fragment from the game has somehow manifested in the real world. Hyun snaps out of a vivid memory of a crowd from another world. He stares blankly, his mind still trying to catch up with reality. He's back in his room, sitting in his gaming chair like nothing happened. Everything looks normal, right down to the old electric fan in the corner. He rubs his face, desperate to believe that the desert was just some crazy dream, but then he spots a strange pouch sitting right on his desk. He picks up a golden fragment. It's an item from the game, and it's definitely real. He quickly tucks it into his pocket as he turns to his computer. The screen just shows an error, failing to load whatever he was looking for. Hyung leans in, his eyes wide behind his glasses. Something on the screen stops him cold. A news broadcast shows a massive prehistoric-looking mantis tearing through the city streets. The footage cuts to a victim lying on the ground, surrounded by blood and rubble. Cops are desperately dumping bullets into the monster, but they aren't even leaving a scratch. Watching the carnage, Hyung and LT, Unk and GT's heart starts racing. He reaches out toward the screen, ready to pull his game resources into the real world. An inventory list pops up filled with Hyle weapons and souls he spent years collecting. He pulls out a glowing orange fragment that pulses with power. This is the fragment of the broken golden rule, the key to syncing his game self with reality. A massive surge of energy erupts from his hands as the transformation begins. Meanwhile, in the middle of a war zone, a mother frantically runs with her child. She looks back just as the world behind them starts to crumble. Concrete slabs fall from the sky like rain. The child is thrown to the ground as a building collapses nearby. The mother is buried under the heavy debris, reaching out one last time. Kim Hannah, an office worker caught in the chaos, sprints through the dust. She's battered and bleeding, but she keeps moving. Hannah finds the trapped woman and the terrified child. A monstrous plant creature towers over them, its maw wide open. A mysterious player suddenly drops in, slicing the beast in half with a flash of blue light. He stands over the remains, his sword still crackling with energy. Hannah pulls the kid close, shielding her from the aftermath of the explosion. The warrior doesn't say a word as he looks out at the spreading destruction. An even bigger threat emerges, a massive serpent with glowing red eyes. The player readies his blade as the giant monster lets out a deafening roar. Hannah looks on in pure terror, the ground shaking beneath her knees. The warrior stands tiny against the scale of the stone-kinned beast. In an instant, he's up on the monster's back, moving with impossible speed. A look of hope finally crosses Hannah's face. The child reaches out for her mother as the rescue effort continues. Other survivors flee in the background as the battle rages on. The player leaps off the giant's head, aiming a finishing strike into its eye. News reports are coming in from all over. Monsters are appearing in Paris and across the globe as the world starts to fall apart. Hyen thinks back to the Hyle players he once knew, like Wilhelm, who were summoned to Pangenia years before him. In the real world, players are already stepping up, standing over the corpses of the beasts terrorizing the cities. He watches the footage on his phone, realizing that others are already starting to use their fragments to gain power. Sitting in his dark apartment, Hunyong stares at the game item in his hand. The life he knew is officially over. He grips the golden fragment tightly, knowing this is his only chance to regain his former strength as Randolph. He clenches his fist as a familiar system window flickers to life right in front of him. The survival rankings have been updated, and even in this chaotic new era, he's still holding on to the top spot. He scans the leaderboard, noting that famous players like Gracia and Massacre are trailing just behind him. His mind drifts back to Wilhelm, the silver-haired legend who once stood as his most trusted ally. But even the strongest warriors were brought low when the dark forces of Pangenia finally betrayed them. Hyung shakes off the memories, focusing instead on the new system alerts flashing on his screen. A flash of a cold, traitorous smirk reminds him exactly why he can't afford to trust anyone this time around. He recalls the brief moments of peace he had relaxing in the hot springs before everything went to hell. Those days of comfort are long gone, replaced by the constant sight of blood and the threat of assassins. The scene shifts back to his time in Pangenia, where Hunyong was making his way through a dark stone corridor. He pushes open the heavy doors to the throne room, where a very familiar face is waiting for him. Isabella, the snake princess, sits imperiously on her throne, looking down at him with a mix of boredom and disdain. She roughly pulls her servant aside, her red eyes burning with a hidden intensity. She stares him down, trying to understand how a lowly slave like him survived the harsh desert. Hyeon doesn't flinch, standing tall as he prepares to make her an offer she won't be able to refuse. He flashes her a confident smirk, knowing exactly which strings to pull to get what he needs. A new main quest appears. His priority now is to find a sanctuary and finally obtain a proper class. The sanctuary looms in the distance, a dark and jagged fortress hidden deep within the heart of the desert. Isabella agrees to lead the way, stepping over the bodies of the guards she just effortlessly cut down. She draws her crimson-bladed dagger, ready to strike anything that dares to get in their path. Hyeon follows close behind, watching her every move as they enter the inner sanctum. He keeps his guard up, knowing that one wrong word could make him her next target. Despite the constant danger, he can't help but smile. Everything is going exactly according to his plan. They head up a massive flight of stone stairs, the air growing thick with the scent of ancient magic. Isabella stops suddenly, her eyes wide as she senses a powerful presence up ahead. Hyun gulps, feeling the sheer pressure of the dark energy radiating from the sanctuary's entrance. He glances back at the princess, wondering if even she is starting to feel the intensity of this place. A heavy stone doorway opens, revealing a dark path shrouded in a sinister purple mist. They begin the long, grueling climb up the stairs toward the source of the power. The toxic energy is so thick, it starts to swirl around them like a physical weight. They reach the upper level, but the path ahead is anything but straightforward. A crumbling wooden bridge hangs precariously over a seemingly bottomless pit. Hunyong looks at the rickety structure, knowing the real path is hidden from ordinary eyes. Isabella turns to him with a sharp predatory smile, clearly testing his resolve. She grips his shoulder, her touch cold and menacing as she leans in close to him. Her eyes glint with a dark hunger. She's looking for any sign of weakness she can exploit. Hyong keeps his cool, leaning in with a smirk that clearly rattles the princess. Isabella is taken aback, her usual composed mask slipping for just a second. She quickly tries to regain her dignity, crossing her arms and scoffing at his audacity. Hyun suddenly drops into a crouch, surprising her with his next move. Isabel's face turns bright red as she realizes what he's suggesting, shouting at him in a panic. His eyes narrow, signaling that he isn't joking. This is the only way across the invisible bridge. Without waiting for a proper answer, Hyeonjeong hoists the flustered princess onto his back. He takes off at a dead sprint, heading straight for the edge where there's no visible ground. Isabella clings to him for dear life, her pride completely forgotten as they dive into the mist. They plummet through the darkness, the wind whipping around them as they fall into the abyss. Suddenly, Hyunyong and LT, Unk and GT, SI flashes with a brilliant blue light as he activates his mutation trait. A path of glowing blue platforms begins to materialize beneath his feet, defying the laws of physics. He sticks the landing perfectly on the invisible bridge, carrying Isabella safely across the void. Isabella looks at him in shock, her heart racing from both the adrenaline and the proximity. Hyong gives her a knowing grin, clearly enjoying how much he's managed to throw her off. She tries to act tough, berating him for his reckless behavior despite him just saving her life. He doesn't slow down, carrying her up a final set of stairs toward the heart of the sanctuary. Isabella falls silent, her expression softening as she realizes how much she's underestimated this slave. They reach the summit, bathed in the ethereal light of the ancient temple's power. A massive surge of energy pulses through the air, shaking the very ground they stand on. The environment shifts, revealing a lush, hidden garden tucked away inside the barren mountains. Hyun scans the area, his senses heightened as he looks for the true prize within the ruins. Through a crack in the ancient stones, a single glowing red core pulses like a beating heart. Shadows begin to stir among the rocks as the sanctuary's guardians awaken to meet the intruders. A massive rock golem rises from the earth, its core burning with a malevolent red flame. Hyong watches calmly, knowing that this is the final trial he must overcome. Isabella steps forward, her blades drawn and her red hair flowing as she prepares to face the beast. She strikes with blinding speed, her daggers carving through the golem's stone hide in a flash of light. The princess is a whirlwind of destruction, her movements precise and lethal. With one final powerful blow, she shatters the golem into a million pieces. Hyong watches from the sidelines with a satisfied smirk. Impressed by her raw power, Isabella lands gracefully among the rubble, the adrenaline of the fight still coursing through her. A blue system window appears before Hyong, signaling the end of the trial. He reads the message, his eyebrows shooting up in genuine surprise at the reward. A complex magical sigil glows in the air, offering him a new destiny. The system gives him a choice. He can now officially acquire the rare Golem Maker class. He looks back at Isabella, who is standing amidst the flowers and the lingering purple mist. High above them, the mountain peaks are pierced by a beam of pure ancient energy. Hyunyong stares up at the light, knowing that his journey is only just beginning. But the silence is broken by a low, guttural growl as a massive serpent head descends from the clouds. Our boy looks up, feeling the immense weight of a legendary guardian. Standing before them is old King Dramit, a massive obsidian serpent that shouldn't even be active. Even in his weak level 1 body, Hyong stays composed while the pressure mounts. Dramit looks down at the intruders like they're nothing more than ants in his sanctuary. The toxic energy is already too much for Isabella, pinning her to the ground. But for Hyong, this terrifying encounter feels more like a meeting with an old friend. Isabella watches in horror as the beast prepares to strike them down. Hyeon Jeong casually notes that back in the game, this monster was actually a pretty helpful guide. Of course, that was when he was the legendary Wilhelm, not a lowly slave named Randolph. Isabella tries to force herself up, but she's completely paralyzed by the Guardian's aura. One sudden movement from the serpent, and the entire ground beneath them shatters. She's forced to dodge as the beast continues its massive, earth-shaking assault. Dramond is offended that a worm would even dare to stand before him without trembling. This scene reminds Hyun of his past life when he first conquered this mountain. Back then, he didn't have to rely on bluffing to get past a level 100 boss. He needs to find a way to bypass the level gap before they both get turned into dust. He spots the exact moment to trigger the secret hidden within the sanctuary. Isabella let out a groan as the crushing force of the Guardian's power intensifies. She's struggling to even draw breath as the toxic mist fills the air. Drama moves in for the killing blow, his massive head looming right over her. Hunyong steps forward, finally deciding it's time to play his ultimate trump card. He gives the serpent a knowing look, proving he isn't just some random trespasser. He speaks the name Wilhelm out loud, and the giant guardian actually freezes in place. Drummond roars in pure disbelief, refusing to accept that his old master could ever return. The sound is absolutely deafening, but Hunyong just plugs his ears and waits for the noise to stop. He brings up the contract of the star, a secret only the true owner of the mountain would know. The beast's eyes narrow as it starts to realize this human might be the real deal. From Drama's perspective, this tiny human shouldn't have access to these high-level secrets. Hyeon Jeong declares that the true master has returned to claim what's rightfully his. The Guardian lunges one last time, a final test to see if the human will flinch. The ancient energy of the mountain begins to vibrate in response to Hyun's claim. He stays perfectly still, even with a god-level monster's fangs inches from his face. A system notification finally pops up. He successfully triggered the trial of transcendence. Sweat drips down his face as the sheer amount of power starts to flood into his body. Drama watches intently, waiting to see if the sacred star will actually accept this host. The fundamental logic of the world is being rewritten right in front of the beast's eyes. Hyeon smirks as the star's inheritor class is officially bestowed upon him. Within the glow of the beast's eye, the shadow of the legendary Wilhelm seems to reappear. Without saying a single word, he exerts his new absolute authority over the Guardian. The massive serpent begins to coil its body and lower its head in total submission. Isabella is left completely speechless, watching a slave command the king of the sanctuary. Drama bows his head all the way to the floor, acknowledging his true master. Our boy leads the way toward the center of the sanctuary. On the altar lies a white skull, the centerpiece of a powerful magic circle. He doesn't hesitate, walking straight toward the relic that will change everything. In his mind, he sees a vision of the twin goddess Leia, the original source of this power. Without a second thought, he reaches out and grabs the skull. It instantly erupts into a pillar of blinding white-hot energy. Dramit watches with intense curiosity, waiting for the star to either accept or incinerate the human. The flames swallow him whole, testing the soul of the one who dares to claim the star. Hunyong holds on tight as the energy burns away his limitations. He watches closely as hairline fractures begin to spider across the bone. The skull can no longer contain the sheer volume of power being released. It shatters completely, merging its essence directly with his body. A list of impossible achievements and titles begins to flood his system. The conversion process is complete, far surpassing any ordinary class awakening. He feels the weight of his new power, a strength that belongs to the legends of old. The dust settles, leaving him standing alone in the center of the ruins. Isabella can only stare in disbelief at the transformation she just witnessed. He looks back at her, his gaze now carrying the authority of a true master. She realizes that her fate is now completely tied to this man. Her thoughts drift back to the powerful enemy she left behind. Hyeon offers her a simple choice. Serve him for a year, and he'll help her find her family. Seeing no other way to achieve her goals, the princess drops to her knees. He accepts her vow, officially making her his first true subordinate. Even a level 100 guardian looks on in silence, as the new power dynamic is established. He checks his updated status, satisfied with the results of his gamble. The system confirms his entry into the Hall of Fame as the constellations watch with interest. Meanwhile, in a distant palace, a mysterious figure senses the shift in the world's power. The queen sits upon her throne, looking down at her kneeling subjects with cold indifference. She orders them to move out immediately. The hunt for the princess and her new master has begun. It's a bright, sunny day in the city. Inside the local coffee shop, a pretty awkward meeting is about to go down. Our boy is stuck sitting across from his toxic ex-girlfriend, Kim Seo. It looks like he'd rather be anywhere else on the planet. Sion takes a slow sip, acting innocent while she weighs her options. She's doing all the talking, probably trying to fish for some money or a favor. She stares him down, looking for any sign of the old, easy-to-manipulate version of him. Meanwhile, the system is finalized and hands out some massive rewards for a job well done. It's a total jackpot, essentially a glowing gift from the stars. While some are winning, a player known as Massacre is busy adding to his body count. Back at the cafe, Hyeonjeong isn't buying a single word she's saying. Soyeon starts to get agitated when she realizes her usual tricks aren't working. She tries the exaggerated cute act, but it's falling completely flat. Elsewhere, these guys are laughing about a joke pizza code for a stalking report. But in a dark alley nearby, things are actually starting to get dangerous. The Hall of Fame rankings update and Randolph is sitting comfortably at number 1. The news of a new top player is spreading like wildfire through the system. This guy seems particularly interested in finding out who the new top ranker really is. Massacre isn't looking for friends, though. He's just looking for more people to kill. The guy is a total monster, treating other players like literal garbage. Returning to the game world, Hunyoung and Isabella prepare to move out. He checks in with her, making sure she's ready for what's coming next. He's feeling the effects of his massive stat jump already. Even at level 3, his stats are comparable to much higher level players. He can't help but smirk at how much stronger he's gotten. Isabella just watches, probably still surprised by a sudden change in attitude. He throws on his new shadow cloak, getting ready to sneak past the queen's trackers. They use a teleportation effect to get a head start on their escape from the sanctuary. They hitch a ride on the giant snake, drum it to cover some ground quickly. Isabella looks a bit uneasy, being so high up on a legendary monster. She's shocked by how easy he's making this whole escape look. Hyong stays focused on the path ahead. She clutches her chest, realizing just how much she's starting to rely on him. Dramit stays behind to make sure the army following them can't get close. The giant snake rears its head, ready to defend its territory. The duo sprints through the ruins, heading straight for the exit. They have to keep moving. The trackers won't stay back forever. A massive stone warp gate looms in front of them. Isabella takes one last look back at the place she's leaving behind. Hyong is already focused on their next destination. The gate glows as they prepare to cross over to the central continent. With one final step, they leave the sanctuary for good. Isabella is left standing alone in the sanctuary, staring at the spot where he vanished. She looks down at the ruins, probably wondering if he's ever coming back. A system notification pops up, logout complete. The game world fades into darkness. Back in the real world, our boy wakes up in his cramped, messy apartment. He groggy sits up on his bed, his phone vibrating right next to him. He reaches for the device, squinting at the bright screen in the dim light. He sits there for a moment, just staring at the phone and gathering his thoughts. He thinks back to the recent news about monsters and players appearing in reality. A text message from someone he'd rather not deal with flashes on the screen. Over at a cafe, his ex-girlfriend, Kim Moyen, is already on a call, looking frustrated. She doesn't seem to care that she's making a scene in the middle of a shop. She scowls at her phone, clearly impatient and tired of waiting for him. She's hunched over the table, looking like a total cloud of doom until she sees him. As soon as he walks in, she shifts gears and gets ready to play her usual games. Ken arrives in his green tracksuit, and she immediately asks why he called her. He takes a seat, looking a lot more composed and detached than the last time she saw him. So Yin puts on a fake sweet smile, trying to reel him back in with her act. Her eyes are fixed on him, searching for any sign of the old weak Hyunong she used to control. She keeps calling him OA, doing her best to sound cute while she talks. She leans in close, trying to use her charms to get whatever she's after this time. But he just looks down at the table, looking completely over her and her drama. He finally speaks up, and his words are a lot colder than she was expecting. She's left speechless, her face twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He doesn't wait for her to explode. He just stands up and walks out on her. As he walks down the street, a system window appears. He's just leveled up in real life. The city is crowded, but he feels like he's seeing everything with a whole new level of clarity. Suddenly, a man with a box cutter lunges at a woman in the middle of the sidewalk. The attacker is screaming like a maniac, swinging the blade wildly at his target. Hyan reacts without a second thought, catching the guy's arm before he can land a blow. The woman he saved is Kim Hannah, a reporter who looks like she's just seen a ghost. He grips the guy's wrist like a vice, and the attacker is completely frozen in place. It's almost scary how easy it is for him to overpower a grown man with his new strength. He looks down at the struggling guy with cold, focused eyes behind his glasses. With one swift motion, he slams the attacker down onto the hard pavement. Hannah is frozen on the ground, staring up at her savior with wide, stunned eyes. A quick flashback shows the moment the attacker first grabbed her. The guy tries to scramble back up, but Han-young isn't about to give him a second chance. He moves with a level of speed and precision that shouldn't even be possible for a normal person. He finishes things by slamming the attacker's head into the ground, knocking him out cold. He stands over the guy for a second, making sure the threat is totally neutralized. Before long, the police arrive at the scene to take the crazed man into custody. Hannah tries to thank him, but Han-young just looks a bit surprised by the attention. Our boy and Kim Hannah stand before the police officers, providing their statements about the incident. Han-young rubs the back of his neck, feeling awkward under the sudden attention from the authorities. One of the officers listens intently, his expression serious as he takes down the details of the rescue. Kim Hannah pulls out her business card, introducing herself formally to the man who saved her life. The officers seem taken aback when they realize she's a reporter for a major news station. The surrounding crowd whispers, recognizing her as the journalist who covers the ongoing monster phenomenon. The lead officer continues the questioning, though his tone has become noticeably more respectful. Hannah turns her full attention back to Han-young, her gaze filled with a mix of curiosity and deep gratitude. She hands him her card with both hands, ensuring they have a way to stay in contact after today. As they talk, images of the world's most famous dimension warriors fighting monsters flash through their minds. Han-jeong looks down at the small piece of cardstock, processing the name Kim Hannah. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by Kim Seo running toward them, calling out frantically. Seo immediately clings to Hyun and LT, Unk and GT's arm, casting a suspicious and hostile glance at Hannah. She grips his sleeve tightly, as if marking her territory in front of the stranger. Her face is pale with a mix of shock and jealousy, clearly not expecting to find him with another woman. Hannah looks down at her phone, already having saved his contact information for future reference. She gives him a polite, knowing smile before turning to leave, telling him she'll be in touch soon. Seo is left standing there, her head bowed as she seethes with a silent, simmering rage. Her face contorts into a terrifying snarl as she watches the other woman walk away. Hannah doesn't look back, focused on her device as she continues down the street. There's a faint, satisfied look on the reporter's face. She's found someone very interesting. Back in the digital realm of the game, Randolph stands atop the corpse of a giant mantis monster. Pillars of blinding light descend from the heavens, scouring the landscape of any remaining enemies. He and Isabella stand amidst a sea of defeated foes, the aftermath of their brutal confrontation. Isabella is breathless and covered in grime, the intensity of the fight finally catching up to her. Nearby, one of the remaining hostile players glares at them from beneath his tattered hood. The battlefield is a chaotic mess of blood and steel as the final remnants of the enemy force are purged. A massive ancient gate begins to hum with power, its surface rippling with blue energy. Randolph and Isabella look toward the portal as it fully stabilizes, signaling the next stage of their journey. They prepare themselves to step through, leaving the blood-soaked ruins of the sanctuary behind. A confident, almost predatory smile spreads across Randolph's face. He clenches his fist, and arcs of golden electricity begin to dance across his knuckles. He activates his exclusive skill, Star Slash, and a massive shockwave tears through the air. The system confirms the skill's duration, granting him less than a minute of overwhelming power. It's the moment of liberation, he declares, standing at the center of a brilliant white-hot explosion. He glances back at Isabella, his expression filled with a newfound sense of authority. She looks at him with wide-awake eyes, completely mesmerized by the sheer scale of his strength. With the way clear, they step into the swirling vortex of the gate together. They emerge into a sun-drenched city, its white stone buildings and domed roofs gleaming under a bright sky. A system warning appears, noting that the city of Arcana is a place where only the wealthy can survive. Randolph leads the way through the crowded streets, looking around at the opulence of the new region. Isabella follows close behind, grinning as she lugs a heavy sack of gold coins over her shoulder. Isabella heaves a heavy sack of gold, her expression shifting to disbelief as she begins to realize the scale of the city's prices. Randolph maintains his cool, a confident smirk playing on his lips as he leads her deeper into the merchant district. They stop at a vendor stall where even a few simple loaves of bread carry an exorbitant price tag of 50 gold pieces. Not missing a beat, Randolph gestures toward a nearby establishment, his eyes gleaming with a hidden motive. He stands before a towering neon-lit casino, offering a thumbs up as if the answer to their financial problems lies within. Isabella's face is flushed with worry, her brow furrowed as she considers the massive risk of losing everything they've gained. Randolph's gaze sharpens, his expression one of pure, calculated ambition as he prepares to make his first big move. A translucent system screen flickers to life before him, signaling the activation of his hidden trait, Golden Blessing. In the Golden City, wealth is the only law. If you don't have gold, you don't exist. Mountains of gold are the lifeblood of this place, and there's no better place to see that power in action than at the Hudson Casino. The guard at the gate stands firm, looking like he's ready to toss out anyone who doesn't look the part. Our boy and Isabella show up, but they look like Penn Niles commoners to the staff. Isabella whispers to him, worried they're about to get rejected before they even get through the door. The guard looks down on them, but Hyun just reaches into his bag with a smirk. He pulls out something that immediately stops the guard in his tracks. He's holding a legendary item, the tear of the Fairy Queen. The manager's attitude flips in a second, bowing and ushering them inside like they're royalty. Isabella is stunned by the sudden change in treatment. As they walk past the bowing staff, they head straight for the VIP floor. Hyun-yong looking completely at home. Inside, the casino is dripping with luxury and Hyun-yong is ready to get to work. The roulette wheel spins, the sound of fortune echoing through the hall. The ball drops into place, landing exactly where it's supposed to. Hyung is cleaning house, placing bets that shouldn't be possible. Chips pile up in front of him as he wins round after round. He stays focused, his golden blessing making the house's odds irrelevant. Isabella is ecstatic, shouting that they're rich, but Hyung reminds her it's his money. The dealer is shaking, completely defeated by the sheer amount of gold they're losing. The whole floor is in an uproar as everyone watches this unknown guy break the casino's bank. The management has seen enough and decides it's time to step in. Hyun-yong sits back casually while surrounded by suits, not bothered at all. Isabella, keep her guard up, ready for things to turn ugly. Hyung isn't leaving until he gets what he came for. Making his demands clear, the manager looks like he's having a breakdown over the massive hole in their books. Up in the private office, the owner, Hudson, stares at the collateral item. He reaches out to examine the glowing gem. Using his observer's hand skill, Hudson realizes this isn't just some shiny rock. The tear of the Fairy Queen is the real deal, worth over 1 million gold. Hudson realizes he's dealing with someone far more dangerous than just a lucky gambler. He sits alone in his office, weighing the risks of meeting this mysterious visitor. He decides to bring them in, his eyes sharp with curiosity and caution. Hyun and Hudson finally sit down face to talk business. Hudson tries to keep his poker face, but he knows he's at a disadvantage. Isabella stands watch as the two men size each other up in the quiet office. Hudson starts sweating under the pressure of the conversation. Hyung just sips his tea, letting the silence do the heavy lifting. Hudson tries to make a deal, offering 2 million gold to buy the talisman outright. Isabella's eyes go wide at the mention of such a massive sum, but Hyun Jeong just sits there unmoved. The atmosphere getting heavy. He hits Hudson with a counter-offer, 20 million, and the truth about his past as a player. Hyun waits for an answer. His face unreadable, but his confidence absolute. Hudson is reeling, trying to figure out how this guy knows his deepest secrets. The system stats pulse in the background. Leveling up isn't just a number. It's a social barrier. The tear of the Fairy Queen glows like a star. A bribe so powerful it could change anyone's life. Hudson is cornered, sweat dripping as he realizes he can't lie his way out of this. Isabella watches with a sharp grin, clearly enjoying seeing the high and mighty casino owner sweat. Memories of Pangina flood back to Hyung, a world he lived in for 5 years. He remembers Serengeti, the noble knight who stood tall even when the world was falling apart. Back on Earth, he was just a guy at a desk. But in that game, he was the hero Randolph. Serengeti sacrificed everything for him, her body broken, but her spirit never wavering. She had given him a locket with a photo of the man she loved, the man standing right in front of him. Hyung recalls the confusion he felt then, realizing now that Hudson had manipulated her very history. It's a bitter realization that even an NPC's memories can be hacked by a desperate player. The image of her smile is tainted now, knowing it was built on a lie. The locket is the key, the proof that Hudson has been playing a long, dark game. Hudson looks like he's seen a ghost, his composure completely shattered. The room is silent as Hung-Yong lays out the truth, one detail at a time. He holds up a finger, making it clear there's only one way this ends. Hudson snaps, shouting and asking if the stranger thinks he's some kind of saint who knows everything. Hung-Yong just give him a cold smirk. He doesn't need to be a saint to know a hack when he sees one. The owner's eyes are wide with fear, realizing he's lost all his leverage. The negotiation continues, but the power has completely shifted across the table. Hudson grips the table, his knuckles white as he tries to find a way out. He looks down, the weight of his secrets finally becoming too much to bear. He remembers the path he took to get here, a trail of bodies and broken settings. His breath is heavy as he prepares to tell the story he's kept hidden for years. He holds onto the locket, his only remaining link to the life he's built in this world. He finally starts talking, opening up about the reality of being a player in a world that hunts them. Hudson looks tired, the mask of the successful businessman finally falling away, but then he says something that makes Hyun's own heart skip a beat. He mentions the Demon Realm expedition, but he speaks of 8 heroes leading the charge. It's a complete contradiction to the history remembers, leaving him stunned. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, a man named Gracia sits comfortably in his private lounge. A news report flashes across the screen, showing the mysterious man who took down a monster in Korea. Gracia watches with interest, his eyes locked on the footage of the monster hunter. In the heart of the United States, the world's strongest player is paying very close attention. He watches the video again, seeing something in the hunter's movements that feels familiar. Gracia smirks, his blue eyes flashing with a mix of curiosity and excitement. Back in the casino, Hung-Yong is left reeling. If history has changed, then everything he knows might be a lie. Our boy stares at the screen, a bead of sweat rolling down his face as he processes the news. On the broadcast, a refined man explains a legendary expedition that everyone seems to remember differently now. Shadowy figures of the 8 heroes loom in the background. The supposed winners of a history that Hyun Jiang knows is wrong. Out in the city, life goes on like normal under the clear blue sky. Hyung stares at his plate, the weight of the distorted timeline making his meal feel heavy. He's sitting in a nice restaurant with Kim Hannah, who treated him to lunch as a thanks for saving her. The scene at the casino with Isabella feels like a lifetime ago, even though it just happened. Hannah smiles and laughs, telling him how grateful she is for his help with her stalker. She notices he's a bit distracted and asks if the food is okay. The mood shifts instantly when a flashy couple walks up to their table. The woman is Kim Seo, Kyung and LT, Unk and GT, ex-girlfriend, and she's already looking at him with total disgust. She snaps at him, telling him that if he's going to stalk people, he should at least try to be subtle about it. Hannah looks back and forth between them, completely confused by the sudden hostility. Hyun just ignores her and keeps eating a steak. Seo's new boyfriend, a blue-haired guy named Young Jin-woo, steps up with a condescending scowl. Jin-woo grits his teeth, clearly annoyed that he's being ignored by someone he considers a loser. The other diners start to turn their heads as the tension at the table spikes. Hyun remembers Hoyong and LT, Unk and GT, as cold words from when she dumped him, and he just doesn't have the energy for this. Jin-woo leans in close, asking Hung-Yong if he even knows who he's dealing with. Hannah jumps to her feet and tells them both to back off and leave them alone. The murmurs in the restaurant grow louder as people realize Jin-woo is a Dimension warrior. Jin-woo pulls out a stack of bills and tosses them onto the table with a smug grin. He tells them to take the money and get lost, but Hannah isn't having it. She glares at him, refusing to let him humiliate them with his pocket change. Jin-woo's expression turns murderous as he realizes the civilians aren't scared of him. Hannah flinches as he raises his hand, the air around him starting to ripple with power. He kicks a chair aside, fully intending to start a fight right there in the middle of the restaurant. Hyung finally looks up, his gaze calm despite the blue-haired brat standing over him. Jin-woo and LT, Unk and GT. SI glows with a faint blue light as he prepares to strike. In a blur of motion, Hyung reaches up and slams Jin-woo's head face first into the floor. So screams in horror as hero boyfriend gets pancaked in a second. Hyung keeps his hand firmly on Jin-woo and LT, Unk and GT's head, pinning him to the tiles like he's nothing. Jinwoo's eye bulges in shock and rage as he realizes he's been overpowered by a normie. Furious, Jin-woo reaches into his pocket for his transformation crest. A golden light begins to pulse from the item in his hand. A blinding flash erupts from the floor, throwing Hung-Yong back. Jin-woo stands up, his body now encased in blue and silver SPE spearman armor. He swings a spear, the force of the movement cracking the floor and sending shock waves through the room. The restaurant patrons scramble for the exits as the transformed warrior looks for his target. Hyung lies on the floor, looking like he's been dazed by the transformation blast. Hannah screams his name, begging him to get up and run. Jin Woo towers over him, his armored fingers twitching as he prepares to finish off the man who humiliated him. Hyung activates his Great Sage trait, revealing the massive experience gap between different types of players. His own stats are insane, with a list of talents that practically fills the entire screen from swordsmanship to observation. When compared side by side, it's not even close. Hyenyang's progress bar dwarfs Jin Woo's tiny level 4 status. He realizes that many players like Jin Woo are just lucky newbies who flood the game as soon as they got a decent class. Jin Woo looks on completely unaware that his flashy armor is just a mask for his lack of real combat experience. In the eyes of a true veteran, Jin Woo is just a silhouette of a warrior with no substance behind it. Hyun adjusts his glasses, his expression calm as he calculates the math of the current situation. Sung clings to Jin Woo and LT, Unk and GT, S-Arm, still thinking her new man is the strongest person in the room. Jin Woo sneers down at Hyun, fully intent on using his status to crush him. Hyung ends up back on the floor, but he isn't hurt. He's just waiting for the next move. Hannah rushes over to check on him, but he just gives her a quick nod to let her know he's fine. He holds up a hand to stop her from worrying, his focus shifting as the ground beneath them begins to tremble. A massive earthquake strikes the building, sending furniture flying and people screaming in terror. The floor cracks wide open as a dungeon erosion event begins right under their feet. A grotesque chidworm bursts out of the debris, its circular mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. Hyun quickly covers Hannah's mouth to keep her quiet, knowing these scavengers hunt by sound. More of the slimy worms crawl out of the floor, surrounding the panicked diners. Hyun watches the creatures closely, realizing they won't attack unless they're provoked. Jin Woo sees this as his big hero moment and prepares to strike the nearest monster. A worm lunges forward and Jin Woo braces himself to show off his spear skills. Hyung shouts a desperate warning for him to stop, but it's already too late. Jin Woo ignores the shout and unleashes a powerful lightning strike, obliterating the worm in a single hit. Dark fluid splatters everywhere as the creature is torn to shreds by the magical impact. He stands over the remains, feeling smug about his easy victory. While the rest of the room goes silent, Jin Woo lets out a triumphant laugh, thinking he's just saved everyone and proven his worth. Hannah looks on in shock, but she can feel that the atmosphere has shifted into something much more dangerous. Red mist begins to spill out from the cracks in the floor as the system triggers the elite aggro rule. A massive clawed hand reaches out from the darkness, radiating an overwhelming aura of malice. Jin Woo is frozen in place, sweat pouring down his face as he realizes the sheer scale of what he's just summoned. A giant red eye snaps open in the void right behind him, locking onto the person who killed its offspring. The elite monster Chittamamba fully emerges from the mist, looming over Jin Woo like a shadow of certain death. The air turns thick with a red mist as a massive shadow begins to stir in the darkness. Hudson hits the ground, gasping for air as the hallucinations start to kick in. A giant red eye peers through the fog, locked onto its next victim. Our boy stands his ground, his hands crackling with lightning as he faces the threat. A massive M bursts out of the darkness, lined with rows of jagged teeth. Hudson can only scream as the beast closes in on him. The mist turns even redder as blood sprays into the air. The monster's glowing eyes burn with pure bloodlust. Hyun draws his sword, looking up at the creature towering over him. A massive, scaly limb slams down, shaking the ground. The beast lets out a roar, showing off a mouth full of venom and teeth. The system identifies the threat. A raid boss named Chidmumba. Outside the fog, Seo Yun calls out, desperate to find him in the chaos. Hyun charges in, swinging his blade with everything he's got. He keeps his focus tight, watching the monster's every move. The Chidmamba shifts its weight, getting ready for a massive counterattack. Its scaly face contorts into a grin, confident it can't be touched. Hyun moves fast, but the monster is just too elusive. He tries to land a hit, but the boss's limbs are everywhere at once. A beam of light nearly takes his head off as he barely dodges. More blood hits the floor as a fight gets grittier. Hyun Jeong realizes his basic gear just won't be enough for this raid. A massive spike slams into the ground right where he was standing. He takes a step back, realizing the monster is just playing with them. The monster looms over him in the mist, its tail twitching with anticipation. It roars again, mocking the human's puny efforts. A close-up of its fangs shows just how much venom it's packing. Hyun pulls out a glowing gem, the tear of the Fairy Queen, to break the game's limits. The armor set begins to manifest, glowing with intense power. In an instant, he's decked out in high-tier red armor. He pulls on a helmet, his eyes glowing with newfound strength. The system lists the Hermes Boots epic gear that gives him a massive speed boost. He launches himself into the air, moving like a crimson blur. He slams back down, creating a shock wave that cracks the earth. Trailing lightning, he starts moving faster than the boss can even see. The monster is caught off guard as he finally lands a solid hit. It tries to thrash around, but he's already moving to its blind spot. The beast retaliates, firing blood needles from the ports on its back. Hyung weaves through the hail of spikes with zero effort. A massive burst of red energy erupts from the boss as it hits its final pattern. He crosses his arms, bracing for the impact while waiting for his opening. Massive wings sprout from his back as he triggers his final item synergy. The Chidmamba doesn't hold back, unleashing a point-blank blast of red energy that swallows everything. It roars into the vortex. Confident has finally crushed the annoying human. The energy swirls into a massive, concentrated spiral. But out of the chaos, our boy's synergy kicks in, sprouting wings and triggering a massive whirlwind called Gale. The monster's eye goes wide as it realizes the tide has completely turned. Hyeonong pushes through the strain, his focus laser locked on the target. The boss is left wide open as the whirlwind clears the fog and leaves it in a state of confusion. Using the momentum, he dives straight down like a crimson meteor. The Chidmamba can only grit its teeth as it stares death in the face. A single perfect strike connects, burying the blade right between the monster's eyebrows. Blood sprays in every direction as the sword sinks deep into its skull. Hyung stares down at his work with a cold, calm expression as the elite monster finally falls. The red mist finally starts to lift. Kim Hannah looks around, her breath catching as the slaughter comes to an end. She spots a figure in red armor, standing amidst the carnage. Our boy, still in his Randolph persona, pulls his hood tighter. Hannah remembers the moment someone stood between her and death. She walks forward, searching for her savior. Hyung keeps his eyes forward, refusing to look back. A bright light flashes as he begins to exit his avatar state. Hannah is left standing alone in the clearing. She hears a voice and spins around. It's just our boy in his usual gray hoodie, scratching his head and acting like he was hiding nearby the whole time. He puts on his best scared civilian act, asking if it's finally safe. But Hannah notices something, a smear of monster blood under his fingernail. She goes quiet, her expression shifting. The silence between them stretches out. Hyung wonders if he made a mistake. Hannah looks at him, the suspicion starting to take root. He tries to laugh it off, gesturing vaguely. The city is on lockdown behind metal shutters. Signs on storefronts declare temporary closures after the attack. The streets are deserted, leaving only the scars of the Dimension War. News anchors are working overtime to cover the crisis. Inside a high-end boardroom, the Hero Alliance is meeting to discuss what happened. Part 2, the captain of the Alliance, listens with a grim expression. His assistant pulls up the latest data on her phone. 2 remains silent, absorbing the information. He stares ahead, his mind racing through the implications. They review the footage of the mysterious player's combat. A bloody sword from the video catches their attention. The Alliance members debate the identity of this Randolph. 2 narrows his eyes, sensing there's more to the story. Somewhere else, someone is watching with a far more sinister intensity. The meeting breaks up as Tae makes his decision. Back in Arcana, Hudson is losing his mind, screaming at Hunyong. Hyun just stands there with his arms crossed, completely unfazed while Isabella looms in the background. He doesn't even blink at the NPC's tantrum. Hudson leans in closer, furious that a rare item was used on a single mob. Hyung gives a cocky smirk, knowing exactly what he's doing. The group heads deeper into the dark, damp tunnels of the sewers. The stone walls echo with their footsteps as they navigate the underground. Hunyong keeps a sharp eye on their surroundings. He pulls out a glowing epic teleport book to set their waypoint. Hudson warns that going further into the sewers is pure suicide. He can't believe how reckless these two are being. Our boy doesn't care. He's already spotted a pair of glowing red eyes in the dark. A massive mutant sewer rat lunges out, teeth bared. The beast is terrifying, but Hunyong and Isabella stand their ground. Hudson, on the other hand, is busy losing his mind. A flash of red light cuts through the air as Isabella strikes. In an instant, the The raid boss is torn apart before it can even touch them. Isabella didn't break a sweat. She's already looking for the next target. Hudson stands there, his mouth hanging open in complete shock. Hyun-jeong glances back at the terrified NPC. He gives a satisfied smirk. Everything is going exactly to plan. Meanwhile, in the real world, the city is still recovering from the chaos. Park 2, the Hero Alliance leader, is frustrated by the lack of clear intel. He orders his team to keep searching for any trace of the mysterious Randolph. He visits a hospital where a survivor of the attack lies broken and bandaged. He walks through the halls, his expression darkening with every step. There's a lot of pressure on the Alliance to provide answers to the public. Suddenly, a massive crowd of reporters gathers outside a building. Cameras flash incessantly as a high-profile figure arrives. It's Gracia, the world's strongest player, and he doesn't look happy to be there. Kim Hannah watches a spectacle, realizing the stakes just got even higher. 2 spots are in the crowd. He knows she's the key to finding the man he's looking for. In another part of the world, a player named Massacre stands amidst a field of phantom swords. He sits in the middle of a bloodbath, panting after his latest illegal kill. The psychopath is obsessed with finding a real challenge. He replays the footage of the phantom, hungry for a fight. To him, the hooded figure is the ultimate prey. Grash's eyes glow with data as he analyzes the same combat logs. Massacre licks his lips, already planning his hunt. Back in Arcana, the party stands before a massive 3-headed Hydrodon. 2 powerful beings watch the events unfold from a realm beyond. Hyun checks his equipment, preparing for the next step of the journey. The mutant sewer rat's corpse lies behind them, a testament to Isabella's power. Hunyong picks up the monster's core, which holds the rare beast lore trait. The gem sparkles with a brilliant diamond-like light. It's the perfect catalyst to evolve their high dragon mount. He explains the plan to Hudson, who is still trying to process what just happened. The NPC sinks onto a bench, completely exhausted by the stress. He looks up at Hunyong, finally starting to realize this guy is on another level. With their new prize in hand, the party prepares to leave the sewers behind. Our boy's eye narrows as he focuses on the goal ahead. A faint knowing smile plays on his lips. He's more than prepared for what's coming next. The party enters the rustling forest where the sunlight barely reaches the ground through the thick canopy. Every leaf and branch seems to hum with a strange, ancient power. Hudson looks up, his face pale with anxiety as they venture deeper into the territory. A massive gnarled tree towers over them, its roots digging deep into the earth like ancient claws. Hyong approaches the trunk, ignoring the eerie silence of the clearing. Glowing veins of mana pulse beneath the bark as he places a hand on the ancient wood. He can feel the forest guardian beginning to wake up from its long slumber. With a sharp ring of steel, he draws his sword from its scabbard. He stands ready, a lone figure against the overwhelming presence of the forest. He swings his blade in a wide arc, a trail of light following the cold steel. The impact creates a massive shockwave, shattering the tree's magical barrier. Debris and leaves fly everywhere as the primary seal of the forest is violently broken. Isabel and Hudson are thrown back by the sudden, intense surge of energy. Hudson's eyes go wide as he realizes they've just disturbed a powerful force. A pillar of light descends from the sky, marking the arrival of the Guardian. Isabella pulls Hudson to safety as the ground beneath them trembles with power. She readies her weapons, her gaze fixed on the branches high above. Hydryad, the master of rustling forest, looms over them with a golden bow ready. The elf-like Guardian looks down with cold, merciless eyes at the intruders. The group stays low, completely overwhelmed by the Guardian's sheer presence. All around them, the forest begins to shift as more spirits emerge from the deep shadows. Isabella's eyes flare with red light. She's ready to fight for her life. The sound of steady, calm footsteps echoes through the quiet clearing. The Hydra doesn't move, his arrow aimed directly at the heart of the intruders. He releases a shot, the arrow whistling through the air with magical speed. Hyong steps forward to face the threat, his sword unshathed and ready. He looks up at the Guardian, his expression unreadable despite the danger. The Hydra prepares another arrow, his patience for the humans wearing thin. He won't let anyone desecrate his forest and escape with their life. Legend says that only those with impossible luck can ever hope to survive this realm. Green mana swirls around Hyun as he begins to tap into his true hidden power. The Dryads are absolutely livid, surrounding the group with weapons drawn and ready to strike. Hudson and Isabella find themselves caught right in the middle of the brewing storm. The High Dryad stares them down, waiting for any excuse to finish them off. Hyenong raises his hand, signaling for everyone to just take a breath and listen. The Dryad warriors aren't dropping their guard for a second, keeping their eyes glued on him. He faces their leader directly, proposing a deal to restore the forest spirits instead of fighting. Hyunyong gives a confident smirk, knowing he's just turned a potential execution into a quest. The High Dryad eventually backs off, signaling his warriors to let the group pass. Suddenly, a massive pillar of light erupts from the stone pile ahead of them. The Dryad leader watches closely as they approach the glowing entrance to the tower. Hyun keeps his cool while the others look like they're expecting another trap. He stares into the light, ready to see what the next floor has in store. A blinding flash of energy consumes the area as they step forward. They're suddenly transported into a vast, celestial golden dimension that seems to go on forever. Isabella and Hudson look around in pure disbelief at the scale of the place. Hyong scans the area, completely unfazed by the sudden shift in reality. The group stands together in the middle of the void, waiting for the tower's judgment. Out of nowhere, a small floating fire spirit orb with a tiny helmet appears before them. Hudson and Isabella aren't sure what to make of the weird little gatekeeper. The orb floats over to Hyong, sensing a power that shouldn't belong to a normal human. It gets right in his face, checking out the unique druidic energy he's radiating. Hyong and LT, Unk and GT, S eyes flash with a faint green glow as he makes a connection with the spirit. The orb decides they're worthy, but it's not going to make things easy for them. Swirls of energy suddenly start pulling at them, dragging each person in a different direction. Hyong keeps his focus even as the teleportation magic starts to tear them apart. Hudson lets out a scream as he's yanked away by the overwhelming force. A massive, terrifying purple gate with a demonic face looms over Hyunyong. He realizes they're being split up into gates that match their elemental affinities. He stares up at the Gate of Chaos, a trial he's never even heard of in 5 years of playing. Isabella is caught in a whirlwind of wind energy as she's sent to her own trial. Hudson is whisked away by streams of water toward a separate gate. Left alone, Hyunyong prepares himself for the most difficult trial in the tower. The demonic face on the gate begins to glow, acknowledging his arrival at the threshold. He looks into the purple void beyond, knowing there's no turning back now. The massive stone doors slowly open, releasing a thick, eerie mist. A bright light shines through the opening as a trial arena reveals itself. Hyun takes his first step into the unknown. He walks through the long, empty corridor, his footsteps echoing through the silence. He finds himself in a grand, empty hall that feels strangely familiar to him. He's taken back to the nights he spent hunched over his computer, mastering this world. He had optimized every skill and raised the most powerful legends in the game. But now, one of those very legends is waiting for him in the shadows. Hyun narrows his eyes, focusing on the movement in the dark hallway. He tightens his grip on his sword, preparing for the first strike. A blur of white and black streaks toward him with speed that shouldn't be possible. He recognizes that cold stare instantly. It's Wilhelm, the rank 1 player he personally raised. His eyes widen as the realization hits. His own masterpiece is now his enemy. Wilhelm lunges with a blinding slash, forcing him into a desperate block. The impact triggers a massive explosion of light as their powers collide. A blade spins through the air, vibrating from the sheer force of the blow. Hyun grinds his teeth, breaking into a cold sweat as the pressure mounts. Wilhelm looms over him like a dark god, his eyes glowing with a murderous red light. A final, overwhelming burst of energy erupts, pushing Hyung to his absolute limit. Hyung is deep in it, his face strained as the battle drags on. A clean hit draws blood, splashing across the scene. He's locked in a deadly duel with a clone that has his exact stats. Activating his gear, he takes to the air to gain some perspective. He slams back down, turning the ground into a crater of light and dust. The pale-haired clone doesn't flinch, staring him down with cold eyes. Randolph dives back in, sword raised for another strike. He pushes his armor to the limit, gritting his teeth through the strain. The clone finally hits the dirt, looking up with a dazed expression. It all comes down to finding that one tiny opening. Even with his vision blurring from fatigue, he refuses to back down. One decisive slash carves through the imitation, ending the fight. He doesn't stop there, skewering another fake before it can move. The clone screams as it dissolves into nothingness. He's running dangerously low on supplies, reaching for a health potion. He downs the liquid, feeling the green aura start to knit his wounds back together. Taking a breather, he looks out over the desolate landscape. But he's not alone. Shadowy figures are already closing in through the fog. Meanwhile, back in Seoul, Kim Hana is hard at work on a new lead. She's interviewing a man named Gracia, who clearly thinks he's the most important guy in the room. He's got a piercing gaze that makes it clear he's looking for something specific. Hannah tries to keep her cool, focusing on her laptop. The conversation turns to the man who saved the city from the giant mantis. Gracia is hunting for the truth, and he wants every detail Hannah has. Back in the tower, the aftermath is brutal. Dead clones are everywhere. From above, you can see the scale of the slaughter. A whole army wiped out. Our boy leans on his sword, his body screaming for a break he knows isn't coming. His eyes remain sharp, scanning the shadows for anything still moving. He picks up the pace, a green blur of speed as he rushes toward the goal. He clears the debris with a massive leap, pushing toward the end of the trial. He lands in a quiet area, but the silence doesn't last long. Small shadow blobs with red eyes manifest, and they seem to like what they see. These chaos spirits start mocking him, acting like they're his best friends. They swarm around, trying to tempt him into giving up on clearing the tower. Randolph isn't interested in their deals, looking at them with pure skepticism. He ignores their nonsense and heads straight for the blinding light of the final door. They try one last scare tactic, conjuring up a sea of clones to block his way. A spirit grins, thinking its psychological warfare is actually working. But Hyanong just draws his sword and keeps walking, ready for whatever's next. Usually, a win like this would get you a standard fire spirit egg. Even a rare water or wind egg would be a massive jackpot for a normal player. But he's handed a chaos spirit egg, pulsing with dark forbidden energy. Randolph looks up, sensing the end of the trial is finally here. He walks into the blinding light, leaving the chaos of the lower floors far behind. He can't help but smirk. His intuition was right, and the exit was exactly where those spirits said it wasn't. Behind him, the frustrated grins of the shadow spirits vanish into the darkness. A massive pillar of light erupts, signaling he's reached the very peak of the tower. He finds himself in a realm of golden stardust, the air humming with ancient magic. Looking out over the shimmering void, even he has to admit this is a pretty impressive sight. The system messages start rolling in, confirming he's cleared the third main quest of the tower. Now comes the part every gamer lives for, calculating the final results and rewards. A small flame-like entity pops into existence, looking more curious than hostile. This is the trial master, the one who actually holds the keys to the kingdom. Randolph watches it closely, his heart racing a bit as he waits for the loot to drop. He holds out his hand, ready to receive the prize he's bled so much for. The entity drifts closer, acknowledging that he saw through the spirit's lies and chose the harder path. Dark energy begins to gather in his palm, swirling into the shape of a rare chaos spirit egg. It's a top-tier reward, but then the black mass starts to pulse with a blinding white light. His eyes widen in total shock as the egg begins to vibrate with an impossible amount of power. A system alert flashes. His hidden celestial trait has just been triggered. The dark egg is engulfed in feathers and divine light, transforming into a celestial spirit egg, a reward that shouldn't even exist. He's holding the heavenly spirit egg, a reward meant only for the highest tier of beings. Seeing the word celestial pop up on his screen actually leaves him a bit shocked. A massive, glowing eye watches him from the interface. Acknowledging his crazy achievement, he figures his hidden heavenly trait must be the thing that triggered this impossible drop. The Spirit Kings and Constellations are definitely paying attention now, clearly entertained by the show. Rewards flood in as the system finalizes his unprecedented victory. He's officially the first person in history to clear the Chaos Tower with a perfect 240 points. The Hall of Fame updates right in front of him, putting his name at the very top. He can't help but smirk. He's finally sitting in the #1 spot. These powerful entities are the gatekeepers to the best quests in the game. To any regular player, getting on their good side is like finding a cheat code for greatness. He takes a moment to absorb it all, knowing his path has just gotten much more interesting. A pillar of light swallows him up as he's transported out of the tower. The weight of being the world's top-ranked player is starting to feel real. He looks back at the image of a knight, reminded of the hero he used to be. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew managed to bag some pretty sweet loot of their own. Keeping his word, Hudson hands over a wind spirit egg to the Dryads of the forest. The Master of the Woods accepts the gift with a quiet, solemn nod of thanks. To show their gratitude, the Dryads bring out a treasure that's been hidden for 1,000 years. It's a legendary Mandrura elixir, and the thing starts screaming the second it sees the sun. Everyone's pretty blown away by the sight of something so rare and powerful. Isabella knows this gift is going to give her a massive power boost for what's coming next. The system rewards her with the Dryad Friend title, granting her full access to the forest. The group moves on, heading across the dusty plains toward the Balan Kingdom. Our boy sits back in a carriage, lost in his own thoughts for the ride. He checks on his guardian wall skill, which keeps his body safe in both the game and reality. A golden rune glows, a physical sign of how much his power has evolved. Their guide points out the city ahead, but there's zero excitement in his voice. As they pull up to tonight's garden, it's clear this place has seen much better days. Instead of a bustling city, they find a crumbling mess of old buildings and broken streets. The whole town feels heavy, filled with people who look like they've lost all hope. Their companion can't even look at it anymore, completely devastated by what his home has become. Isabella and the protagonist scan the area, seeing nothing but misery in every direction. The man just grabs his head in despair. This isn't the city he remembers. Our boy steps out into the street, his presence barely making a ripple. He sees people huddled in every corner, their lives ruined by the failure of his past expedition. In the middle of the square, a massive black monument looms over everyone. They stop to watch as a crowd gathers for a memorial ceremony, their faces full of grief. The stone is covered in the names of the 500 knights who died under his command. He stands at the back of the crowd, looking at the list of those he led to their end. A simple bouquet of white flowers sits at the base, a lonely tribute to the fallen. He just stares at the names, finally feeling the crushing weight of the tragedy he left behind. Grandma May collapses right there in the square, her cries of grief finally becoming too much to bear. Hudson and Isabella are caught completely off guard, the sudden fall of the old woman making them jump. The whole area erupts into a panic as the citizens crowd around to see what happened. Our boy doesn't hesitate, catching the woman before she slams into the hard pavement. He looks down at her with a heavy heart. Seeing the physical toll that this dying city has taken on its people, they rush her to the local aid station, but the young priest at the door is too busy counting pennies to care about the dying. The group follows him inside, but the place feels more like a morgue than a house of healing. Hudson looks around with a mix of guilt and sorrow, knowing he played a part in the city's downfall. The assistant turns back to them with this creepy, greedy grin that just doesn't belong in a church. He starts sizing them up, his eyes practically lighting up when he sees their gear. Hudson is absolutely floored when the kid asks for a donation that's basically a month's salary for a normal person. Our boy isn't about to play these games. He can see the rot in this place, and he's already done with it. The boy's smug attitude starts to crack under the pressure of the protagonist's icy glare. Our boy just stands there, his arms crossed as he waits for the nonsense to stop. Then there's Priest Andrew, an elder who's clearly been beaten down by the crushing poverty of his flock. He sits there with his hands clasped, clinging to his cross like it's the only thing keeping him from falling apart. The sounds of the dying outside don't even seem to register with him anymore. Outside, the city is a disaster zone of shattered windows and people huddled together just to survive the night. Hudson can't help but ask, how did a place this proud and wealthy fall so far so fast? The answer is locked away in a crumbling manor where the servants are busy pouring the last of the wine. A glass shatters against the wall as the Marquis lashes out in a drunken, hopeless rage. Maris Weiser is a shadow of the hero he once was, sitting slumped in his chair while he yells at his advisors. He glares through a haze of alcohol, his face buried in an unkempt beard and eyes full of pure bitterness. Hudson and the protagonist find him in the dim light, the once great lord looking completely lost. Our boy decides to skip the talk and just drops a heavy bag of gold right on the table. The young priest and Hudson both freeze, their jaws hitting the floor when they see the sheer amount of gold. The kid's eyes bulge out with pure greed. He's never seen that much money in his entire life. Gold coins literally reflect in his pupils as he realizes he's just hit the jackpot. Priest Andrew stays in his silent prayer, probably asking for forgiveness for whatever he's about to do. With a bribe accepted, our boy